I'm Australia's Climate Change Ambassador, and some of you might have heard me speaking at various things already, but can I say I'm genuinely excited about this event, and I think it may end up being my favourite event at COP, so thank you for being part of it. One of the reasons I'm personally so excited about this event is it combines a number of key priorities in how Australia does climate diplomacy and how Australia tries to support other countries with their own transition away from fossil fuels. So I see that as drawing on three fundamental objectives Australia has and three fundamental, abilities Australia has. So firstly, it's very much about backing in Pacific climate leadership and, as I mentioned, supporting the Pacific to undertake their own transition away from fossil fuels. Secondly, this is about drawing on experiences and lessons that Australia has developed through our own system-wide approach to transition of our national electricity market. And thirdly, it leverages this excellent breadth of skills and expertise of non-government actors, and very much, I'm sure if Minister Bowen was here or when he is here, you will hear him use the words Team Australia, and I think this is what today's event and announcements very much represent. So I'll just explain a little bit more about those before we get on with the real stars and experts of the show. So first of all, of course, Australia and the whole world is undertaking a transition of our energy systems now. Progress is being made, but of course much more progress is still to be made. And the government in Australia, for what it's worth, has been investing significantly in strengthening our own electricity grid as a precursor, really, to enable very large amounts of large-scale renewable energy projects to enter into our energy market. And we've been working very actively with our states and territories, so our multiple layers of government, because many of them are responsible for their renewable energy projects and their energy generation. So we've been undertaking an awful lot of coordination and consultation with states and territories so that we can coordinate investments and projects, ensure smooth interconnections between different parts of our energy market, very much so that we can maximise the spare renewable energy in one part of our energy market and deliver it where there are gaps in another. And of course, households are playing a really important role in Australia. We continue to lead the world in the uptake of household solar power in Australia, more than 1 in 3 homes, and I think just yesterday Minister Bowen announced the 4 millionth Australian home to have solar power installed. So very much Australian households are leaning into this effort as well. But of course, energy transition of this scale is not without its challenges. Many of you would know that in order to meet our target of 82% renewable energy by 2030, that needs serious analysis, systems planning and coordination across multiple participants and a really judicious sequencing of projects. That's all I'm going to say about Australia, but I did want to give that context for why I'm excited about this project and how it can support the Pacific. As many of you would know, Australia is the largest climate finance partner for the region, and we're increasing our climate finance. Typically that has supported adaptation and resilience, because even though the Pacific is responsible for about 0.02% of the world's emissions, their level and ambition of leadership expands beyond resilience building and very much about leading their own energy transitions away from fossil fuels. So for us, this project is about how we use Australia's experience and expertise and climate finance to support the Pacific to make that happen. A little bit of background as to sort of how we got where we are today. So 1 year ago, our Prime Minister announced 350 million Australian dollars in climate finance for supporting resilient and renewable energy infrastructure in the Pacific. It's under a program called the Pacific Climate Infrastructure Financing Partnership, or PCIFP. So what we'll be telling you about today, and what others will be telling you about, is the progress that we've been recently making under that PCIFP project. And as a bit of a spoiler alert, we'll have some exciting new announcements about next steps under that and how we're expanding that work even further. But let's start with what's happening now. So to deliver off-grid renewable energy through that PCIFP program, we do need more than just funding. We need new partnerships. So I'm really pleased that here today we have, both live and in person and virtually, some of the partners that we've been bringing together under that program over the past year. So the key objective of that PCIFP program is to bring renewable energy to places that don't have access to modern energy or have to rely on expensive and dirty diesel generators to produce electricity. Of course, renewable energy is not only low emitting or zero emitting, it can have significant developmental benefits for countries as well. But of course, we can't take renewable energy to remote places unless we have three things in place. Firstly, a deep understanding of local communities, their needs, their challenges, their dreams, their capacities, their economies, and their unique cultures. Secondly, we need appropriate renewable technologies, tough and resilient to disasters, and easily monitored and repaired if anything goes wrong. And thirdly, we need co-financing to ensure there's viable operations and maintenance in place for once the first projects are built and need to continue operating. And so, as I mentioned before, of course, the essential ingredient in that is partners. So when Australia announced and started our journey under the PCIFP last year, we actually weren't sure how many partners would put their hand up to join us on that journey. But I'm very pleased to say that the Australian government has been really genuinely impressed and overwhelmed with how many people have put their hand up to be part of this initiative. So in particular, we've had a great range of interest from Australia's top universities, from a number of incredible NGOs who know the Pacific really well, and of course from our world-leading renewable energy industry in Australia. And I have the honour of stopping speaking very soon and introducing some of them to you shortly. So we're going to kick off and give you some insights into some of the work that's already been happening under this partnership. And we're going to start with Vanuatu. So the Australian government has entered into a partnership with ActionAid Australia and the fabulous Women's Action Network that they have built in Vanuatu. And they very recently launched the Womani Tok Tok Together Federation, which is an Indigenous Australian social enterprise that is turning e-waste into long-lasting batteries called Power Wells. So I really am going to stop talking now and invite our colleagues from ActionAid Australia, Michelle Higelin, CEO of ActionAid Australia, and ActionAid Vanuatu's Flora Vano. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador, and welcome everyone in the room. For many women in my country, we do not have access to electricity like most of you sitting in this room. Only 33% of household and public institutions in Vanuatu have electricity access connection to grid network. And only in our bigger islands in Vanuatu, where the capital cities are and where big planes can be on it, have access to energy. In rural areas where we work currently, up to 90% of our communities don't have access to electricity. The island of Tanna, where this project will take place, it has little access to the community that we will actually roll out the program in. So north of Tanna, very remote of the main town in Tanna Island, we are still using kerosene lamp, candles, and we are still using fires. Little that we have access to energy. Women have told us that the need of electricity and lighting is a protection issue in our communities. And it also will enable them, if the project comes, better cooking, better hygiene, protections of themselves going to and from the market, back from the gardens late at night, safe protection for all women, girls, and women with disability. Also, it will allow children to have access to study a bit later during the night. So ActionAid Vanuatu, we are thrilled to be bringing in solar energy to over 600 people in 115 households in Lawitel village in North Tana. So through this project, we are strengthening women's control and access to clean, affordable energy in Tana. And I'd like to also acknowledge our Director in Country of Energy, Mr. Anthony Karai, who's in the room, who allows this project to run by women. I think it's the first of its kind for women and women with disability to have that access.
So through this project, ActionAid is partnering with Powerwells, an Australian social enterprise that aims to provide solutions to the dual problems of energy poverty and electronic waste globally. ActionAid brings its community networks and its experience supporting women's leadership in climate action, and Powerwells brings technology to the partnership. Their solar systems repurpose lithium-ion batteries and other upcycled materials to give them a second life and provide affordable energy to communities without power, as well as diverting toxic waste from landfills. This exciting new project will provide lighting and device charging systems to all 115 households in the Lawitel community, to 5 community centres, and set up street lights in 10 public spaces. The project will also train women to install the devices and undertake repairs as part of its focus on sustainability. And a monthly payment system called PayGo technology will also be piloted to support users to gain ownership of the systems over a 3-year period. The overall goal of this project is to improve livelihoods of women in their communities, but it will bring many benefits, enhancing access to clean energy, improving women's health and safety, promoting digital inclusion, and most importantly, establishing a sustainable and scalable model that can be replicated across Vanuatu and other Pacific islands in desperate need of clean energy.
This project will be a game-changing for women in my communities. We are in 5 islands in Vanuatu. We got 83 islands altogether, 63 of them are habitable, but you can see we are only in 5 islands, and out of the 5 islands, only 1 community would be having that pilot on. Other communities are already asking why only 1 community. So it will be the first of its kind, and we are very excited. You could see also from the photos, the women are happy receiving the solars while we were in the communities. The situation that it will do, it will be transformational for women, and also we encourage that a lot of our kids would reach a higher level of education while we got the energy installed in the community. It will also show the importance of contributions of women leadership that we can bring to our communities. This is vital for our patriarchy society like mine, where only 1 woman sits in the government, in our national parliament. So supporting women's leadership in bringing renewable energy to the community brings a double impact of driving gender equality and clean energy transition. Thank you to the Australian government for your support for this project. We have been dreaming of it since 2015. We haven't had a chance to have one, but this is the first one, and we, from the bottom of our heart, and Women Talk Together, we thank you. We will start with 1 community, and we hope that from this project we will upscale to all the other communities that we work with. And not only from 5 islands, but a lot more islands to cover in Vanuatu. Thank you, Tomas.
Thanks very much, Flora and Michelle. We're going to move to another country now, Timor-Leste. While the young nation of Timor-Leste has done a remarkable job bringing electricity to virtually the whole country, there are still opportunities for off-grid renewables to make a difference. And we're seeing that through a new innovative partnership, this time between the Australian Government, Engineers Without Borders, Timorese smallholder coffee farmers, and another amazing social enterprise called Raw Material. So I now invite Bella Guterres Pires from Engineers Without Borders and Matt Grayley from Raw Material to take the microphone and talk us through that project.
Thank you, Ambassador. Our project. We are designing and building 100% solar power coffee processing hubs in remote Timor-Leste communities to empower those currently living off-grid through clean, efficient, and sustainable coffee processing, and therefore can provide all year-round electricity for other local services beyond coffee. Our project is a collaboration between Engineers Without Borders Australia and Raw Material, and with the great support from Australian government. Our project aligns well with Timor-Leste Strategic Development Plan that aim by 2030 to have about 50% of its energy supply sourced from renewable. Our project also aligns with Timor-Leste Coffee Sector Development Plan with its 2030 goals of increasing coffee export value by 270%. And our project supports Timor-Leste's commitment to reduce emissions and to increase resilience to climate change.
Coffee forms a cultural and economic cornerstone in Timor-Leste, with just shy of 40% of the population being involved in its production. However, access to high-value markets is very, very limited. In fact, for those communities that rely on coffee for their income, most live below the poverty line. And where we focus our work, household incomes sit between $200 and $500 for the year. That being the case, you can understand that naturally there's not much profit available for reinvestment, and so we find ourselves in a situation where the trees are very old and farms only produce about 20% of their potential yield. Our project aims to improve household incomes initially by accessing the specialty market and doing it in a way that simultaneously helps improve the environment. We start by installing solar arrays in the processing hubs of two off-grid communities called Raimutin and Koileki, with a total output of 34 kilowatts in peak and also 20 kilowatt-hour solar batteries. It allows us to upgrade the processing facilities for a clean and very predictable way of improving quality up to that level that the specialty coffee market really expects. Also, this allows in the future for scaling to be carried out by local teams who have learned through this initial pilot program.
As a tropical country, Timor-Leste has abundant solar opportunity. In harnessing it, this project reduces carbon emissions by avoiding the use of fossil fuel from otherwise a diesel-run generator, therefore contributing to the reduction of emissions of approximately an initial 40 tons of CO2 per year. Outside of coffee season, access to power will support local fabrication, such as high-quality welding, therefore reducing reliance on imported equipment for infrastructure, including for during future expansion. This will also support refrigeration of fresh produce, phone charging stations, satellite internet connection, and this can also enable remote jobs while keeping talent and the cultural knowledge within the community. This project also promotes inclusive development by promoting women and people living with disability to training and employment. Now, We are 9 months into the project, and so far we have completed several community consultations to engage and collaborate with the community on the design and implementation. We have delivered our first solar panel to Raimutin, and also we have finalized the design and testing of the coffee processing system, and therefore we have produced the best practice guide and used video. Now this has been translated to the local language.
As we look to the future, we acknowledge that this collaboration on expanding off-grid community wet mills is one piece of a much larger strategy that's been underway for a few years. This is important because with the right structure in place, Timor-Leste can leverage its natural advantages that it has when producing high-quality coffee. It's got great altitude, naturally shade-grown, and also it's organic by default. So to that end, we've been developing our Center for Coffee Excellence that will be the place that we can link all of these quite disparate, far-flung processing hubs to one place where they can access education services such as the Plant to Port program that we have already running in Colombia. We want to bring that to Timor-Leste along with access to harvest finance and essentially exporting services to ensure that these high quality products reach the new markets that are willing to pay for them. Also crucially, it's time to start producing new baby trees. We're starting with 100,000 trees per year, focus on testing climate resilient, disease resistant and high yielding varieties to ensure that they are in fact the right varieties to roll out across the nation in good harmony with the natural forest cover that is already there. This is critical because studies have shown a very sound-biteable, almost too good to be true statistic, which is simply improving the output of the country's coffee by double will halve the poverty rate. It's almost too simple to be true, but there it is. Ultimately, by harnessing this opportunity of solar power and integrating it into a system that aligns incentives to ensure that this is sustained long term, making sure that it's part of an economy that's already in place, we can not only just see an uptick in economic benefit initially, but rather this is a catalyst for ongoing broad development.
So, as coffee farmers see increased income and as solar power coffee processing bring reliable energy, we create opportunities for other industry to grow. And therefore, these hubs can become the pillar for a diversified, resilient economy. Lastly, we want to say, what starts with a cup of coffee can evolve into a sustainable future for Timor-Leste, where communities strive through both heritage and innovation, connected to the world, yet grounded in their cultural roots. This is more than just a coffee. It's a blueprint for a lasting prosperity. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Bella and Matt. Another excellent story about the work that's underway. And I'll take you up on the challenge on doubling East Timor's coffee sales, I guess largely exports. From tomorrow, those of you that spend precious time lining up for coffee here will be drinking Timorese coffee. And to get to that 200, that doubling of sales, I think we all need to take the challenge that next year in Brazil, we need to make sure as many people are drinking Timorese coffee as possible. So all the pavilions need to be selling providing Timorese coffee. All right, so you've heard now just two of the 13 projects that have been launched and progressed over that first year that's been underway for the PCIFP. We're going to see a video shortly about another proud Pacific Island nation and climate vulnerable nation, the Solomon Islands, and I acknowledge Minister Mahaga who's in the crowd here. Solomon Islands, of course, has huge potential for off-grid renewables. with 4 of the earliest projects under this partnership being rolled out in the Solomon Islands. We're going to see a short video now to talk more about these projects and the impacts they are making.
The Pacific Climate Infrastructure Financing Partnership is an initiative of the Australian Government to address what is the biggest security challenge facing the Pacific, and that is climate change. And climate change means there's impacts on the small islands and the coastal regions and the people of the Pacific, but also climate has produced one of the most powerful new forms of energy, and that's renewable energy, solar and other forms of renewable energy. The purpose of the PCFP is to try to bring these new technologies to the remote and rural parts of the Pacific, not only to tackle climate change, but also to provide new economic opportunities.
Across so much of the Pacific, we see many communities without access to electricity. And we know how important electricity is to communities being able to educate their children, build their businesses, and provide essential health services.
We're partnering with the community of Takataka on a rural electrification project that will support rural livelihoods and increase access to energy across the community.
We're working with the Women's Community Group, and we are rehabilitating an existing micro-hydro system to build the capacity in the village so more of that renewable energy can be utilised in the village for income generation.
It will be a big impact for us on reducing costs. It will help us on a proper service deliverance without being afraid of getting without power. We will have access to proper lighting in our homes, and I believe that women and people in the community will really benefit from this project.
This is Australia's way of reaching out to the rural and remote parts of the Pacific, providing them with a new form of energy and trying to help them to build a sustainable future for themselves.
It's been a real privilege to work with such passionate partners in the countries we work in. These are people who are working on really difficult issues in difficult places, and different types of partners coming together to help solve problems. Private sector, local companies, NGOs, academia, all bringing their resources and their passion to work together and to help navigate challenges.
Solomon Islands itself has a target to have 100% renewable energy by 2050. And Australia, as the #1 friend, #1 development partner of Solomon Islands, wants to be part of that solution. These projects will be bringing cheap, affordable, reliable, and importantly, clean energy out to the communities.
We as the Australian Government want to be long-term partners in good quality development, so working with local communities, with industry, with finance sector and with other players to try to make these solutions sustainable so that they don't provide renewable energy just for 1 or 2 years, but for 10 or 20 years, and they really start to transform the development trajectory of rural and remote places.
Thanks very much. So that takes us through part 1 of today's event. But just before we move to part 2, can I personally thank the people that have come all the way from various parts of the world here to Azerbaijan to share those wonderful stories and experiences. So thank you. The speakers that have already presented here today will be around after the event should you have any questions. It's now my pleasure to move us into part 2, where we're going to talk about what's next under this partnership. And can I give the honour of that task to the Honourable Chris Bowen, Minister for Climate Change and Energy.
Well, thank you, Ambassador. It's wonderful to see everyone here at the Australian Pavilion. Welcome to our excellent pavilion. This is the first event that I've undertaken at this COP in this pavilion, so a special welcome to all of you and a special thank you to our Australian team here led by Ollie, who run an excellent pavilion with an excellent reputation as being one of the great pavilions of a COP, and it should and always will be a very welcoming environment to all. I also want to acknowledge my friends, my friend Cedric Schuster, the Minister from Samoa, of course Trevor Mahaga from Solomon Islands. We also have the Secretary General of the Pacific Islands Forum, Baron, good to see you. And of course, Gustav from Palau, good to see you, welcome. And the Oceans Commissioner, Philemon, thank you for coming today. Well, as the Ambassador said, today is about really two things. It is updating you on the work that's underway in partnership across the Pacific and announcing the next steps. And I think we can all agree those projects we've seen and talked about earlier today really do remind us that what we are doing is, one, important, two, making a difference. And there is always much, much more to do. These good projects, as good as they are only just really scratching the surface of the potential that we have and the challenge that we have before us. And there's a lot at stake at this COP. One of the reasons I'm not doing many events at this pavilion, this is really the only one, is that I've been asked to co-chair the negotiations on global climate finance, which will eat up all my time. And we don't know how that will go. There's a lot of very strongly held views on all sides, it's fair to say at this point, of the negotiations. But regardless of what happens there, the work that countries will do, regardless of what is decided in the NCQG discussions, is vital. And Australia intends to continue, to double down and to do more in working particularly with the Pacific. That's where we focus our efforts, it's where we focus our attentions, with due respect to all but apologies to none. The Pacific family is our number one priority. And so today we're announcing new commitments, two new commitments, which add to $125 million worth of new investment in the Pacific. The projects that we've just seen are being funded under the Australian Infrastructure Financing Facility for the Pacific, which Prime Minister Albanese announced a little while ago, but that's just the start. And so today we are announcing $75 million in our new program called Renew Pacific, which will be focused on connecting renewable electricity to remote and rural parts of the Pacific, who do not currently have any connection with electricity at all. So this is partly about decarbonisation, but it's partly about also just providing that reliable energy which is so important to communities, to ensure that the hospital that's delivering babies has electricity on demand, that the schools have lights, that the houses don't need to embark on any type of cooking other than cooking with electricity if they so choose to. So there's great opportunities there, which is double whammy, which is decarbonising and renewable energy, but also bringing electricity to communities that don't have it. And the other project that we're announcing today is $50 million, which will be in partnership with Pacific Island nations to help Pacific Island nations manage and develop their energy grids for the future. Now, we all have to do this. We're all on a journey. I've met already today with international counterparts who are talking about what they're doing. And of course, you know, in Australia, we're building 5,000 kilometres of transmission lines between now and 2030 to get the job done, to move the energy around our great country, because if it's not sunny or windy in one part of Australia, it's almost certainly sunny or windy in another part of Australia. We can move that energy around, but it takes a lot of work. Those new grids aren't easy, and they need different management. A renewable system needs different management than an old fossil fuel system. It needs different investments in things to balance the system and ensure reliable supply. So that $50 million investment will be through the Australia-Pacific Partnership for Energy Transition, new project that we're undertaking to work in partnership for Pacific Islands to identify the needs and for us to help fulfil those needs and make those investments so that the skills and the learnings that we can all share on that journey are fully available to the Pacific nations. So friends, we gather here today when it's midnight in Australia and past midnight in parts of the Pacific. We've all travelled a long way to be here, more than 10,000 kilometres, 13,000 kilometres some of us. We don't do so for fun. We do so because the work we are doing is important. Because while it might be midnight in Australia and past midnight in the Pacific, it's 1 minute to midnight for the planet. And the task that we have is just so important, and the negotiations that us ministers are in are important, but the practical things that we are doing are just, or if not more important, for all of us. So it's my pleasure to join with my ministerial counterparts today and with all of you to celebrate and nurture the work that Australia and the Pacific does together, and to make the important announcements about the next steps. Thank you for the partnerships that we already have, and thank you even more for the partnerships we are about to have over the next few years. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Minister Bowen. Part two's not over yet. As you heard, we have a number of Pacific ministers and leaders here with us, and I have the honour of inviting up Minister Cedric Schuster, Minister for Natural Resources and the Environment from Samoa, to provide some remarks. Thanks, Minister.
Minister Bowen, Secretary General, Honourable Ministers, Excellencies, friends. I've been asked to say something, but first of all, we want to congratulate and extend our warmest gratitude and appreciation to the Government of Australia through Minister Bowen and Ambassador Kirsten for the new initiative. The extension of the programs, for us, this really is walking the talk. We just approved last year as part of COP28 the transition to renewable energy. And this is walking the talk from the Australia and government to really help us. And as you've seen in the programs, a lot of countries like Vanuatu, only 30% have access because of a lot of the smaller islands. So the program of having the microgrids and supporting these communities is really needed. We have our ambitions in our NDCs. About 80% of the Pacific Islands have already submitted their second NDCs. That's a lot, but we can't implement them unless we have friends and cousins like the Aussies. We're waiting for the New Zealand cousins to come to the... But it helps, and it gives us great confidence that we are able to continue with the work and implement these initiatives. I want to again extend our great appreciation. And the good thing about the programs, as Minister Bowen has spoken about, one is the microgrids for the outer communities. Some of the islands, we need to upgrade our grid systems. For countries like Samoa, transitioning, before we get into providing a lot of the solar, we need to upgrade the grid system to be able to uptake all the new renewable energy consumption. So these will both help not just the smaller communities in the outer islands, but also the national grid. And these two really means that at the national level, our countries will be able to really accelerate the transition. And with that, I want to again extend our appreciation from our ministers in the Pacific to the Government of Australia, and also put a plug in for everyone that's here. We look forward to seeing you all in COP31 in Australia and the Pacific.
All right, we are getting close to the end, ladies and gentlemen, so thank you, Minister Schuster, for those remarks. As I mentioned before, I do want to close with the fact that we can't take forward our own support as Australia in supporting Pacific leadership on energy transition without, of course, the excellent partnerships that we have already formed over the last year and the many more that we will take forward with these new programs. So I think a slide's going to come up shortly, but for those of you interested in hearing more, learning more, or looking at how you or your organisation can help us with the next steps of these partnerships, there should be a QR code in which you can go to a website that will tell you much more. So I hope that's been really useful and informative for you. As I said, all my side events that I get to participate in are my favourites, but this one might be just slightly more favourite than the rest. Thank you, all of you, for coming. It's a really great crowd standing from here and looking at how full it is. In fact, I'm going to take one quick photo just to show everyone the best event we've had so far. All right. Thanks very much, everyone, for coming along, and please stick around for further conversations. Thank you. I think, yeah,